Frigate. I can't decide. It sounds like a frog and a swear word at the same time. Frigate, frigate, frigate. But it is also an NVR system, and a bloody good one at that. But for version 0.14, Blake and the rest of the team over at Frigate have knocked it out of the park. It's no exaggeration to say that the upcoming UI changes are a complete game changer. In this video, we're going to dive into all the important updates, demonstrate how they all work, what they look like, and how they will completely change the way you use Frigate going forward. Back when Frigate was first released, it was only a stateless object detection pipeline for Home Assistant, but it had no real user interface, and it really just did this one task. Over time, a basic user interface was added on top. That was then expanded to include live video feeds and recordings and events. So by the time we got up to version 0.13, Frigate had become a pretty good NVR system that had a somewhat clunky user interface. For the upcoming 0.14 release, that slightly clunky legacy user interface heads straight into the bin and is replaced with something that has huge potential. So when Blake, the creator of Frigate, announced this new user interface, he explained that it had been designed around two key concepts. The first one is to be able to allow users to easily be able to see what just happened or what is happening right now. The second use case is what happened last night, like when I was in bed, what went on? Did anything interesting happen? Or what happened in the last 24 hours. When we dive into it, you will see that almost everything in the user interface has been designed around accomplishing these two tasks as efficiently as possible. Just to be clear, the release I'm looking at here is Frigate 0.14 Beta 3, so it is not a final released piece of software. If you're going to give it a go, make sure you read the release notes before you do. So that is probably enough waffling and background. Let's jump into Frigate and see what these new UI changes look like. So when you first open up Frigate, this is what you will land on. This is the new live view dashboard. So we have four new main sections: the live view, the review section, the export section, the Frigate Plus section. Down here you also have a new icon for opening the settings menu and the new account section. You also have some additional information shown down at the bottom of the screen here, and a little indicator about how healthy your system is. So the new live view is, as you would expect, it shows you a live stream of all of your cameras with some optimizations. So previously in Frigate, if you wanted to see a live view of a camera, you had to either click on a camera and open that up individually, which was far from ideal, or you had to use the bird's eye feed. The bird's eye feed would server side mash several video feeds together into a single feed that you could view at the same time. So to optimize this new live view screen, what the guys at Frigate have done is each of these cameras is not necessarily live. If you look in the top right of this camera, you see there's a little red dot. That means this is a live video feed. Also, it's fairly obvious. There's fish moving. You can tell it's live. But some of these, it's not that obvious. So this looks like a static image, but in the top right you can see there's a red dot, so this is live. This one, however, is not live. No red dot. No red dot. So what Frigate is doing in the background, it's constantly analyzing video feeds for motion, and it's using that information to optimize this screen. So when you've got feeds that have motion, it'll be live. When there's no motion detected, Frigate will only periodically update the frame. So it's reducing the server load, it's reducing bandwidth, and it's reducing the load in your client. All around, it's a pretty great solution to having a live view of many cameras at one time. So in total, I have 14 cameras, 3 of them are disabled for this demo, and I don't really want to see all 14 on a single screen like this. You end up with quite a small view of each camera. The next trick the new user interface has is really great. When you open the live view tab here, you end up on this default view of all cameras, but just below that we have this little plus icon, and this allows you to add individual customized views. So if we click on the plus here, we have the option to add a new camera group. So I'm going to go ahead and click add camera group. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it overview because I want my default view here to be something that replaces what bird's eye was. I'll add the bird's eye camera just so we can see what that looks like. And I'm just going to add a few more cameras to this to demonstrate. That'll do for now. We also have the option down here to select an icon. As a homage to bird's eye view, I'm going to put a bird here. So let's put a bird. So we've got a new camera group called Overview, bunch of cameras. Click Save. And you'll see here we have our new dashboard, our new overview dashboard. So I'm going to click on that. So now we have a view with just the cameras that we've selected, but it does not finish there. You can go back and just to demonstrate again, so this is the original bird's eye view. So I don't actually want that there, just demonstrating that it's still available. So we can go back in here and we can edit this group and remove bird's eye and save. So now we have a group with 6 cameras. That's better. I can logically group my cameras into things like garden, maybe outside views of my house. I can group them basically however I want. The possibilities there are endless. So the party tricks do not stop there. So what we get down here are a few icons. So I can click there to quickly edit this. I can view in full screen. And I can, most importantly, change the layout. So I'm going to click here and that gives me the option to change the layout. So let's say my drive view is the most important view. So I'm going to move that to be first. And then I want that down at the bottom. But I like to be able to see, you can't see, there's a gate down here. And I want to be able to see what's going on there. So I want this to be bigger. That's nice. Put that up there. That there. We'll move him over there. We'll move this up here. So now I have a view of all of my cameras organized the way I want. So the possibilities with this are endless. The only limit is your imagination. You can organize your cameras into whatever groups you want. You can resize them however you like. You can move them around into any order you want. Another great thing, some people might call it a limitation, but I think it's a pretty good way of implementing this. These layouts are stored locally in your browser. So if you open this view on your phone or on your tablet or something else, or even on a different computer, you won't get the same layout. But that's almost always what you want. You're not normally going to be opening the same view on 2 different PCs with the same screen, for example. If you did, you just have to recreate the layout. But if you're going to open it on a tablet, it's going to be a different size. You probably want the layout to be different. So it makes sense that this is stored locally. So you can continue to add as many of these dashboards as you want. I normally have the overview. I have a separate view of my internal cameras. So if I was being at all critical of this, I think this all cameras view is not actually that useful. When I can create my own custom views and sort it however I want, in an ideal world, this all cameras view would just be like any other dashboard, and I could add and remove cameras, change the name. So it should just default to being called all cameras and show all cameras, but I should be able to edit it, change it, make it whatever I want. That would probably be the ideal solution. Either that or just have an option in settings to not show the all cameras tab, because most of the time I'm not going to want it. I'm just going to have several views that show the cameras that I want to be able to see. So I've enlisted the help of my daughter to demonstrate what happens when motion is detected on a camera. So you'll see there's a red bounding box appears and you get a little icon in the top left. It just vanished. She's going too quick. There you go. So you get a little icon in the corner to show you what has been detected and a red bounding box around the frame whenever anything interesting is happening. Something that I am not convinced about, I find it quite distracting, quite annoying, are these little GIFs that you get up at the top. So the idea of this is to show you what just happened. So you'll get a whole row of them appearing up here, and they're just a very quick animation showing you what happened. But there's so much motion going on. If I'm working on this screen over here, all I can see out the corner of my eye is just this constant flickering motion. And yeah, I don't know. I think definitely useful for some, but I would like to see the option in settings to be able to disable that. Or maybe even an option per camera group, so you can say I don't want to see this for this camera group. That would be ideal. So from the live view screen, you can click on any of your cameras. If we click on this one, and this opens up a larger view of that individual camera. So on this screen, you can go full screen, picture in picture. You also have the options here to toggle on and off the detect, recording, and snapshots. And up here, you have a history button that takes you to a separate view with a timeline where you can scrub through the history of that individual camera, but we'll get back to that in a minute. So if we move on to the next main section of Frigate, that is the review section. So we'll click on the review button here. That opens up the review screen. So this screen is split into three main sections. You got alerts, detections, and motion. If we start on motion, so motion is kind of as you would expect. It's a way to scrub back through your timeline. You can see all of your cameras in one place, and you can see any motion that's happened. It also highlights detections and alerts. So you'll see around each camera you can get a border, either a sort of orangey color for detection or a red color for alerts, and it also shows you any motion that has happened. So you can see in the timeline on the right here, the little yellow bars indicate the amount of motion that happened. The little yellow background bars highlight if there was a detection, and the red bars highlight if there was an alert. So by default, again, this shows you all of your cameras, but you can click on all cameras here. And if we click overview, so that is the camera group that we created. So that will enable the cameras from overview, or you can individually toggle on and off each camera. So we'll just go with overview just now. And we can scrub back. Let's see if we can scrub back and find that little rugrat running around. There you go. It's a super useful way of scrubbing back and forth and being able to see all of your cameras at the same time. By default, this shows you a view of the last 24 hours, but you can click on last 24 hours and go back in time and see previous day's footage if you wish. You can also toggle on and off whether it's just showing motion or whether it's additionally showing you detections and alerts. So if we toggle that on, you'll see the detections and alerts disappear from here, and the only thing that gets highlighted on the cameras is motion. Don't really use the motion tab that much, but that is more a testament of how well alerts and detections work. But this is a really useful place to come and get a general overview of your cameras and scrub back in time through a group of cameras all at once. So if we click on one of the cameras here, we can open up the camera view screen. So this is the history view of that camera. You have the same sort of timeline on the right here, where you can grab the handle and scrub back and forth. You also have the highlighting of alerts and detections, and the motion is shown. So that's pretty cool. You have some of the same options up here. You can filter by different types of objects. So let's say we only want to see cats, because everybody loves cats. So you can see the detections here that had my daughter in them are no longer showing, and it's only going to highlight detections with cats. We can scrub back down the timeline and look for cats. There we go. Look, here's a cat. Oh, look, cat. That is a very big cat, otherwise known as 2 foxes, 3 foxes. What are you doing on my table? Anyway, Frigate doesn't... Oh. Seriously? So Frigate does not have a machine learning model that detects foxes. So my foxes either show up as cats or dogs, which is understandable. Oh my god. So this is what I have to put up with, but it's a good opportunity to demonstrate another feature. You can use the mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out, which is pretty cool. And you can just grab and pan around. Foxes are cute, but they make such a mess. So up here on above the timeline, we also have 2 options. So you have the timeline option and the events option. I do find this a little bit quirky. To my eye, this looks like events is selected and I want to select timeline, but no, timeline is what is selected. But events shows you a list of all the events and allows you to scroll back through them. So we can see we've got these 3 events relating to these cats. So the other cool thing you'll see is down here you have these other views. So these are the other cameras from the group that we came from, and these are actually updating in real time as well. So if there was something moving here, you would be able to see that, and you can then click into these to see what's happening in that frame. So if something moves from one video camera to another video camera, you can see that and you can click around and you can navigate about. So the other option you have up here is the export option. I think this would probably be better renamed as the save option. It replaces the option to start an event inside Frigate and keep it to stop it from being deleted. So this is the new recommended thing, is to export it to save it. But exporting doesn't necessarily mean you're downloading or exporting it. It just puts it into the export screen so it's available for you to download, and it keeps it so it doesn't get deleted and tidied up. Let's say we want to export naughty foxes. You know, some crime has been committed. There are fox prints all over my car and I want to keep the evidence. So we can go up here and go to export. So you have several options: the last hour, the last 4 hours, 8 hours, 24 hours, select from timeline, and custom. So custom lets you select a specific date and time, but by far the most useful one is timeline. We're going to go select from timeline, and then we're going to go down here and go naughty foxes and click select. See, now in the timeline we've got these extra blue markers, so you can click and this works really well. You can drag that around. Your right is about here that naughtiness started, and then we can go, all right, the naughtiness is finished here, and up here you just click save export. So in the background that is now creating an export of just those frames that we've selected from the export section. And over here in the export tab we now have naughty foxes. So from here you have the option to play it, and you can play the video back, you can play it full screen, you can download it, you can change the name, or you can delete it. So if we jump back over to the review section, so from the motion screen, if we jump over to the next main tab in here, that is detections. So by default, detections does show you all cameras. So I've pre-filtered this down to overview, and it's just showing you, well, it just appears to be loads of foxes, doesn't it? You have the same last 24 hours, so you can change the timeline, and the filter is the same as before. So we're currently showing all labels, all zones. What is quite different is the timeline. You're no longer dragging through time and seeing all of these update at the same time, because they're all events that happened at different times. So what you get is a timeline that shows you when different events happened. And as you move around here, it scrolls and highlights. So we need to go further. There you go. You can scroll through time and see what happened at a specific time. So detections are a lot like they are like events inside Frigate 0.13. Anytime there's motion and inside that frame with the motion an object is detected, that will appear as a detection. You can obviously customize all of this in the config and decide what is a detection and what's not a detection, what objects you're interested in, just like you could before. What is slightly new here is we have this concept of reviewed. So you'll see some of these have a gray icon and some of them have a green icon. And if I hover over it, it shows you a sort of GIF version, and you'll see the icon in the top left turns to green. So that is showing that these have been reviewed. If I were to reload this, you see those reviewed items have disappeared. And there's a new toggle up here where I can click show reviewed, and it shows you things that you have previously reviewed. So this is a pretty great place. You can kind of just skim down it and quickly see anything interesting that's happened. Cat, 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 fox, fox. There's not a lot interesting happening in my garden, apparently. When you get to the bottom, you also have the option to mark all of these items as reviewed. To be honest, in detections, I almost never bother reviewing or marking things as reviewed in detections. I just let it roll around. It's a good place to come and skim through what's happened. What is a real game changer are alerts. So alerts are just detections, but they're detections that you have specifically said, I am interested in these detections. These are the things that I want to see. So if we go over to alerts, you'll see all of the events that have my daughter running around in the garden. This is a person in my garden. That's something I'm interested in. So those get flagged as alerts. So again, this is all configurable. You can choose what detections are flagged as alerts. You can choose what sort of objects are alerts. You can choose what cameras generate alerts. And you can choose what zones inside cameras generate alerts. So it's really pretty flexible. You can customize it almost any way you can imagine. It is also alerts that appear on the live view as GIFs up in the top here. So detections don't appear here, it's just alerts. So only things that you've classed in your environment as a high priority. And again, the same thing happens here. So you can review it and it'll go green. You can click on it, open it in full screen, see trouble running around the garden, and that will be reviewed. And up here again, you have all cameras, show reviewed, so all the same options. On the right hand side, you have the same style timeline that you had in detections. So everything here is almost exactly the same as of detections, except you're only seeing high priority alerts. So I think the alerts, detections, and motion screens, it's all amazing. I really love it. They've really hit the nail on the head with this one. So the last major section is Frigate Plus. This screen allows you to easily see objects that Frigate has decided are interesting and should be sent to Frigate Plus for review. So for example, we could take this one and go, oh, the wife is cutting the grass. This is a person. Yes, this is a person. So it's a great central place to see frames and give you a little bit more option to filter down and send things off to Frigate Plus. The other option that you have that I didn't mention before, which is pretty useful, you can jump over to detections and look at a frame in history. You have this new option here for Frigate Plus. So we could just go, all right, this frame, yeah, I'm interested in this. This has something going on. I mean, it doesn't, it's got a fox in it, so I wouldn't really want to tag it, but I can click this and I can send this frame to Frigate Plus by clicking submit, and that'll appear in the Frigate Plus portal. Previously, to do that, I would have to have right-clicked, gone save video frame as, then uploaded it into Frigate Plus. So quite a few steps that are fixed by just being able to go, this frame's interesting, send that to Frigate Plus. So the next option on the left-hand side is the new settings menu. It's not really a settings menu because if we click on it, the first thing is system metrics. So system metrics is pretty cool. You get lots of nice graphs showing you how your system is performing. You can see your inference speed, how much CPU is being used, what your GPU is up to. Storage is also pretty interesting, so you can quickly see which cameras are using up lots of disk space. And the last one is the cameras section. This shows you nice little graphs. So you get a frames and detection overview graph, and then for each camera you get two separate graphs. So you get a CPU graph showing you the CPU usage for that camera, and then also a frames and detections graph. If we hover over it, so we get frames per second, detections per second, and skipped detections per second. So that yellow one, you don't really want too many yellow ones. It gives you a good overview. It also allows you to see if the camera has a lot of motion going on. Next up in settings, we have the system log. Super exciting, it's a system log, but if anything's going wrong, then it's first port of call. Next up, we have the new settings screen. So the settings screen is fairly sparse at the moment, but it's an improvement that we've got it. So the first major option you got here is automatic live view. That's on by default. If you switch that off, the live view screen will no longer show you live camera feeds. Instead, it will just update the images once per minute. Nowhere near as useful. Not sure why anyone would want it, but it's good to have the option. You have the option to clear your stored layouts. change the default playback speed. The next section is users. So here you can add a new user for the new access control system. So I haven't done anything with users or the user section. I'm currently logged in as an anonymous user. Not sure I will use it, but it's good to have the option. So the next three sections are slightly odd camera specific sections. So you have this general and users, they're like normal tabs. But then these three sections are camera specific. So you have a toggle in the corner where you can change the camera that it relates to. Just feels a bit weird that you've got general and then these three camera specific bits where you've got a camera selector and then another section here. Anyway, minor quibble. So we'll stay on the fish tank because it's about the most interesting camera with motion. So on here you can see I've got a single motion mask up here. You could do all of this previously, you could add masks in zones, but it was all a little bit clunky. I could never, for example, figure out how to add an extra point. You could add points, but they just randomly appeared somewhere on the mask. What we've got now works an awful lot better. So you can just create a new mask and I can add a new point anywhere I want. Wherever I click, I get the new point. Move the point around, and so you can grab the mask and you can move that around as well. So it seems to work really well. It seems to work much better than it did previously. Worked before, was functional, but now it works really well. So I don't actually want a mask, so get rid of that. You can do the same thing. You can add an object mask and you can add zones in exactly the same way. The next tab is the motion tuner. So this is new. You could previously change the threshold. All these options could be changed in the YAML file, but they're now available here in the motion tuner. The great thing about this, you can change the sliders and the motion detection changes in near real time to reflect what you have done. So as an extreme, if we drag the threshold all the way down, you'll see we're detecting motion all over the place. And if we drag it all the way up the other way, we detect virtually no motion at all. So the debug screen is not super exciting, is super useful, but is not much different to the previous version of Frigate. So you can toggle on and off all the different types of bounding box, timestamp zones, all that sort of stuff, and you get a list of objects that have been detected in the frame. So this is all super useful, good stuff. Hopefully going forward, more of the config settings in the YAML file will be available in the user interface and won't require a restart. So things like masks, adding and setting masks still requires you to restart Frigate. So what else have you got in here? You have the configuration editor. So that's pretty much exactly the same as before. I'm not going to open it because there's passwords and things in there. You have the option to toggle between light and dark theme. Oh my God, why would anyone want a light theme? That's disgusting. So back to dark, thank God. You have a theme option. So these are pretty subtle. I prefer the default one. Someone has good taste, so default is good. You can change it to blue, gold, really garish. Anyway, quite a few themes in there to choose from. Red, that's quite nice actually. And then you have a link to the documentation, a link to GitHub, and a link to Restart Frigate. The last option you have down at the bottom here is just a menu thing that gives you the option to log out if you were using the new access control system, and shows you what user is currently logged in. So I think that covers all of the major changes in Frigate 0.14. I'm sure you will agree with me that Blake and the rest of the team over at Frigate have completely knocked it out of the park. The changes are amazing and I love them. I've been using them for a couple of weeks now, and even with a few little bugs here and there, a few teething problems in the beta, I still love it. Daily driver, it's working great. If you want to see how I created a private indoor camera system that's only active when my alarm system's active, check out this video up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.